Hi guys, I was going to read you The Night of the Dancing Puppets by Donny Podrasky. My library didn't have this full book, so I'm only going to read the sample, but I'll still look for the full book. This was a requested video, so I apologize that it's only the sample, which I think are the first 2 chapters, although this first chapter looks really short, so maybe it's not the whole first chapter. But we'll see how this goes. And it kind of ends really abruptly because it's just the sample. And hopefully it makes sense, because I didn't exactly read it yet. So we'll just get started on this. So the first chapter is called My Act of Terrorism. Looking at the Sunday paper, an image of a blazing fire dominates the front page. The foreground is an expensive parking lot with tall light poles at regular intervals along the parking space lines. The asphalt looks smooth and new. It has fresh white lines defining each parking space. A brilliant white glare flashes off the mirror-like surface of the parking lot. It is a reflection of the bright light emanating from the structure, which is now a towering bonfire. Mounted high up on all sides of the large stucco building are charring faces of large, cuddly-looking stuffed animals. Those fairy faces of popular animatronic characters are blackened with soot. They seem to be crinkling, melting, and burning in the blaze. It is a sad sight to behold. It's like watching a kitten drown. The caption describes how a franchise from a large chain of an entertainment restaurant was completely destroyed last night. The caption alludes to how there is no sign of promise for the building to be rebuilt. We're back in business anytime in the near future. The title of the article reads Local Fun Spot, Victim of Domestic Terrorism. I need to let you in on a little secret. I'm not proud of how this all looks. Truth be told, I'm not even proud of what I've done. But it is what it is. I feel that a man who can't face the truth or admit to it isn't a man at all. So I'll tell you my secret. The secret is, I'm the terrorist who destroyed a franchise owner's life and his dreams. I'm the guy that took a place full of fond memories for lots of innocent children and burned it to the ground. It tortures my soul to see the angst on their little faces when they have to see the children looking at what is left of their favorite restaurant. It's not a pretty sight to see how sad they are when they behold the twisted, mangled remains of their favorite animatronic puppets every time I park in that lot and walk to the grocery store. However, I can proudly tell you that my actions were for a good reason. Just let me explain it to you, and hopefully you won't think I'm such a monster after all. So that was chapter 1. And this is chapter 2, A Night with the Fish. It was a cool Florida autumn night. The sky was beautiful with dozens of shades of gray, pink, and purple defining the shape of every nocturnal cloud. The clouds slowly drifted in a peaceful, sedate manner across the atmosphere. I could see the piercing glow of a nearly full, waning moon radiating through a dense, puffy cloud close to the horizon. The tall palm trees along the dark-ended street ascended gracefully into the sky. Their palms exploded slowly and beautifully outward and downward as they hung. The main street, I sat in a beach chair outside my house, was illuminated with the soft yellow of the street lights. Crickets played their rhythm, and the sparse nighttime traffic flowed calmly. The smoothly cruising tires sang their soothing, whispery chorus as they rushed along their course. I puffed quietly on my rough-bowled, 100% authentic, bent-stem tobacco pipe. The flavor of the night was cocoa rum. It's a special blend of pipe tobacco that the owner of the Smoker's Paradise of Clearwater blended by hand. It's amazing how that stuff was blended. It tastes and smells like Parrot Bay rum as well as cocoa pebbles. The mixture of these flavors on my palate was quite delightful and very interesting. Flavor has always been important to pipe and cigar smokers. That has always been the primary reason we have smoked those things. I was simply puffing the smoke into my mouth and allowing the complexity of the flavors to render on my palate. I was never in the habit of inhaling any smoke because I never heard that it was improper to do with a pipe or a cigar. When my pipe smoldered its last puff of smoke, I stood up out of my blue nylon beach chair and slowly walked a couple of steps into the lawn. I turned the pipe upside down and shook out the ashes with several firm taps of my index finger. Then retrieved the pipe tool from my pocket and scratched out the remaining clumps of ashes with the spoon part. The embers slowly fell and danced in loops. They drifted in spirals towards the grass. I felt the stagnant state of my muscles and the urge to stretch. As I extended my arms outward and arched my back, I yawned and inhaled the sweet scent of my pipe smoke. The scent was still residual in my black t-shirt. It was just another one of those nights when I knew I should have been asleep already, but I just had no desire to sleep at all. I couldn't fall asleep if I wanted to. So I walked into my house and grabbed my goggles and mechanic's gloves. I walked across the dewy grass in my black leather loafers and headed towards my motorcycle. It was standing in my driveway. My bike looked beautiful as I approached it. It was a black 250R, built by United Motors, a company which I have heard went out of business. That's too bad because that crotch rocket was gorgeous and the maintenance was very inexpensive. I put the keys in the ignition, grabbed the handlebars, squeezed the front brake, and swung my right leg over, straddling the bike in doing so. I reflexively kicked back the kickstand. Its dull metallic clank rang out through the silent night. The cool autumn breeze felt amazing on my flesh as I started the bike and put the choke in full blast. The engine chirped at me in a rapid succession until it turned over. A slow, awkward, stalling rhythm began to lethargically purr from my baby. As the choke lever was moved all the way back, the engine sang and crescendoed from low-pitched, slow, uneven beats to a high-pitched, fast, steady rhythm. I listened to her quiet roar for a few seconds until I felt the oil and heat was unevenly distributed throughout her delicate engine. Then I eased the choke forward to full choke and squeezed the clutch lever. As if by automation, my left foot stomped the gear shift lever downward into first. I rolled back the throttle. This made a warm purr project from the bike with more vigor. Then I eased the clutch out until my left foot swept off the pavement. My bike rolled me slowly down the driveway. I stopped at the end of my driveway and looked both ways. There was a quiet whisper of some distant tires on the road somewhere, but not a headlight was in sight. The lazy wind breathed over my body and soothed me with its gentle caress. The clatter of palm trees was a welcome sound amongst the ever-present song of the happy crickets. I let the clutch out again. This time I rolled the throttle back as I twisted my handlebars to the left, which sent my bike leaning on the right edge of its tires. Turning right onto the street, I sailed down the pavement. The ride was blissful, as most rides tend to be. The cool, gentle air turned into a slightly chilling blast. The quiet sounds of nature around me were muted by the angry hiss of the passing air. The rushing air hugged me with its laminar flow. All I could hear now was the relative wind and the soft growl of my bike as I bumped RPMs into her. The occasional clap of the transmission interrupted the steady noise as I climbed the gears. When the occasional slowpoke would appear in front of me, I could then enjoy the effects of gyroscopic stability and the caster effect. As I twisted my handlebars to the right, it sent my sport bike to the left. When I turned my handlebars left, it caused my bike to complete the graceful slalom by turning right. Few things in life feel as beautiful as a nice smooth ride on a motorcycle. It would always kind of disappoint me when I would reach my destination. I saw the array of tall, bright, white lights in the sky as I approached my favorite pier. It was one of the few piers I could go to where they allowed people to fish all day and night. It was lit via tall lampposts that outlined the pier. During the night, when I have trouble sleeping, I can always enjoy the beauty and excitement of catching a glimpse of a fish at this pier. When I reached a parking spot near the pier, I cut off my engine and kicked down the kickstand. I dismounted the bike with a quick back kick of my right leg. I proceeded to walk towards the pier while slowly removing my gloves and goggles. As I walked along the aluminum planks and looked over the railing, I could see a spectacular view. The water was crystal clear with a medium green hue and very still. It was a peaceful place to be. The gentle breeze greeted me again as I stared into the water and watched the slow, graceful dance of the seagrass. Suddenly, a grayish-white light flashed at me from the sandy bottom. What was that? I asked myself aloud. I couldn't quite make it out, but it did look a lot like the tail of a fish, although I wasn't sure. Sometimes the water played tricks on my eyes, and the tiny waves made reflections that resembled a moving fish tail. I kept my eyes wide open and tried not to move them from side to side at all. I tried to let the motion of anything catch my eyes. I found that by keeping my eyes very still and focusing on nothing at all, I was more successful in spotting a moving fish. So I did as I have always done. I stood there blankly staring into the water for several minutes. The concept of time was lost to me after a while as I stood there very still in the state of meditation. My breathing was shallow. I could hear every little sound. I could hear the quiet conversations of fishermen at the far end of the pier, the scratching of the palm leaves as the soft breeze barely managed to move them, and the crashing of nearly motionless water against the sea wall. Just as I was about to give up, my eyes were pulled towards something to my right. Right as my eyes gained focus, I saw that it was a small school of some very large, beautiful mullet. Whoa, that's so awesome. I wish I had my net with me right now, I told myself aloud. Then a sharp, rapid beeping sang out. It was like a chain of firecrackers was exploding 5 feet from my head. I felt an intense, sharp tingle chill through every nerve in my body, which caused my limbs to extend outward rapidly. My spine wrenched backwards and I gasped. Ah, I yelled in a whisper. I took a couple of rapid breaths while my mind collected itself. I then realized that in the loud beeping was actually the very quiet ringing of my cell phone. The name Jamaica read across the screen of my phone as I retrieved it from my pocket. I really don't have much of a social life. Jamaica was the closest friend I had. Of all. And literally, it just ends there. At of all. So, I'm sorry if some parts of this were kind of awkward. I had to pause it and figure out where I was on the page because it skips a few pages. There's a couple that are blank and you have to scroll down a lot to actually get to the next part. And the font is very large. So for some reason that made it a little more difficult to read properly. So yeah. But that's all from The Night of the Dancing Puppets, and I will still try to look for this book. But yeah, my library isn't the most reliable when you're actually trying to look for a specific book. It's more just like a browse and maybe come across something that looks like you might like it type library. So I will try to make another video soon. I'm thinking about reading about maybe the story behind Amityville Horror. If you know about that, it's also a movie or 2 or 3. I'm not sure how many movies there are. Sorry if you heard that. That was the door. But there's a movie that was from 2005, and then another one that was from like the 70s or the 80s. That's not very good, and it's kind of funny. But it's based off of a true story, so I thought that might be interesting to read about. Thank you for listening, and like I said, I'll make another video soon.